Thanks, Edon. Hi, everybody. The first thing I want to do is to go back to the early 20th century, and I want to quote Eleanor Roosevelt when she said that every day you should do at least one thing that scares you. So I know where I am right now, with the cameras, with the lights, with this microphone in my hand. I'm definitely ticking that box today. So thanks, Edon, for the introduction and for the opportunity to speak here tonight. It's a great honour. I've been at lots of great gigs here at the White Horse over the last couple of years because I only live 10 minutes walk away. But I never quite visualised myself being on the stage. So while it's pushing my own comfort zone, it's very exciting. So by the way, actually, to tick the box of doing something to be scared about tomorrow, I'm booked in with my dentist at 10 a.m. Sorry if there's any dentists here. When Edon asked me to speak at this event, I thought about the whole area of performance and what I could speak about within a brief time frame. And it made me think, how can I talk about performance in business and sport and personal performance in that short period of time? So I thought it should be a bit like a movie trailer, a snapshot, if you will, of performance in all those areas. And it reminded me of a movie that I saw, a movie from 2006, and that I saw a couple of years back. And it was a movie called Peaceful Warrior. And it was taken from a book by Dan Millman entitled The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And there's lots of different lessons from this movie that are similar to other lessons that I've picked up over the years. So I thought I might share those with you tonight. And before I get into the specific lessons from that, the first thing I want to raise is the whole topic of awareness and self-awareness and how we are aware of ourselves, of what we're doing, and why we're doing what we're doing. Because I think a lot of the time these days we're pretty much living on autopilot and we're living unconsciously. You know, the alarm goes off in the morning, we get into the usual routine, and, you know, before we know it, we may or may not have had breakfast, or, you know, we're at work, we're after arguing with the traffic or arguing with the guy who's on Radio 1 that morning or whatever, and then we may or may not get lunch in, and before we know it, we're back in the traffic again. We're back home, we may or may not get exercise, or we could be on the couch watching TV for 2 hours. So a lot of the times we don't really become aware of what we're doing. So that brings me to the first lesson from the movie, and that was to get out of your mind. And there's two ways of doing this. The first one is to be like the fly on the wall. And what that does is it asks you just to step outside yourself and look at yourself as if you are a completely different person. And what you can do if you look at yourself as a completely different person is one of two things. The first thing you might do is you might actually give yourself a little bit of credit for the achievements that you've done over the last couple of years, or all the things that you've achieved in your life. And the second thing that you can do is you can look at how you can change your life if that's what you want to do, or how you can improve your performance. So the second way of getting out of your mind is in the whole area of focus and concentration. And this is very evident with professional athletes. You know, when you see them and they've got their eyes glazed, they've got their eyes on the prize because they're in the zone, they're really in the flow. So, you know, when we are in the flow, there's nothing can get in our way. These guys have got their eyes on the prize. And what they're doing at that time, it's called distraction control. Nothing else can get in their way. Maybe we can bring that to our own lives, through our personal lives, through our work lives, and it's just focusing and concentrating on what you're doing when you're doing it. And maybe it might mean getting rid of some of those distractions, like turning off the phone for 15 or 30 minutes, or switching off Microsoft Outlook just for that period of time, so that we can really concentrate on what we're doing. It helps us to get in the flow, get into the zone ourselves. And when we are in the flow and when we are in the zone, it helps us to ignore obstacles that might be in our way. And some of these obstacles are what we call self-limiting beliefs. And we really need to be aware of what these self-limiting beliefs are. These are the little voices that are in our head, and they kind of talk to us in the background going, well, I can't do that, or I don't do this, or I'm not able to do that, or I can't kick with my left leg, or I can't reach that high. And it's very powerful. That self-talk is very powerful. So we really need to take more notice of what we are saying to ourselves, because at the end of the day, we take a lot more notice of what we say ourselves compared to what other people say. So we take a lot more notice of what we say about ourselves rather than what other people might say about us. Henry Ford had a great saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you are right. So I would encourage you to look for evidence as well. I was running alongside a lady recently, a lady I didn't know that well. And as we were running along, I was making conversation with her, and I asked her, how often do you run? And as we were running along, she said, oh, I don't run at all. I'm not a runner. So I carried on the conversation because I hear this quite a lot, but it just struck me, maybe just to look at the evidence, to prove it right or wrong, whatever you're saying. So maybe what we can do, which is the next lesson in the movie, is to take out the trash. And the trash are those limiting beliefs which are stopping us achieving our potential. So maybe as a trigger, the next time you're putting the bag out to the wheelie bin or wheeling that bin out for collection on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, maybe think, what limiting belief can I put into that bin so that it's taken away and that I never see it again? And what could we do if that belief is gotten rid of? So it increases our potential. One guy who didn't have too many self-limiting beliefs was the great golfer, Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus identified that all the other golfers, particularly when it came to the majors, were putting obstacles in their way. The obstacle was that they all believed that winning the major was more difficult than any other competition. And Jack Nicklaus spotted this. So then he thought, well, if all these guys are putting that obstacle in their way, that actually makes it easier for me to win. So he went into every major tournament believing that it was easier to win that tournament because all the other guys weren't as confident. And he went on to win many golf majors. Another belief he had was that on the final round of a major, he would never more than 2-putt on any green. And he was saying this at a talk one night, but a journalist picked up on him and he said, excuse me, Mr. Nicklaus, but in Augusta in 1979 on the 11th green, didn't you 3-putt that night? And Jack Nicklaus looked at him and said, no, I didn't. But the journalist was quite adamant about it. And Jack Nicklaus kept saying, no, I didn't. But it turned out that the journalist was correct. He did 3-putt that night. One of the only times that he ever 3-putted in the last round of a major, but he completely erased it from his mind. As far as he was concerned, he was going on the first tee of the final round of a major. He was not going to putt more than twice on any green. What a powerful belief to have going into when you really need your own self-belief. So a good way for us to challenge our self-limiting beliefs is to get outside our comfort zone. Our comfort zone, that safe, warm place where nothing new happens, there's no change, there's no risk, there's definitely no failure. And sometimes the comfort zone can come in the form of a wingman when it comes to a social event. Maybe even an event like this, when you might ring your friend and you'll go, are you going to that event at the weekend? And the other guy will say, well, I'll go if you're going. And we'd say, okay, we'll go, but we won't go too early. So what we need to do to push outside that comfort zone is we need to take something like a massive action. And that was the next lesson from the movie, to push through that terror barrier, which gets us out of our comfort zone. I was working with a group of about 60 people earlier this year in a Couch to 5K running program. For those of you who are not aware of it, it's an 8-week program where we take people out running 3 times a week, and they go from running 0 kilometers up to 5 kilometers. So it starts very gently. People are running for just 60 seconds and then walking for 90 seconds. And the intervals of running move up as we go along through the program. It goes up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, up to 8 minutes. So when I sent out the program for this particular week, it went from 8 minutes up to 20 minutes. And they said, Niall, that's too much of a jump. I can't go from 8 minutes to 20 minutes. So I knew we needed a different approach here. So when it came to that session where the 20 minutes was to be done, I said, okay, we're changing the session tonight. We're going to use it as a time trial instead. So we know we can all run for 8 minutes. Let's see how far we can get. Just go to 8 and then see if you can get to 9. See if you can get to 10. Take it 1 minute at a time, and however far you get, we'll tailor the program next week to suit that. So we headed off out and we started running, and I would call out the time as we were going. I'd say we're going for 5 minutes. Now we're going for 15 minutes. And on that night, 95% of the people running with me actually ran for the 20 minutes. And they were shocked. They were delighted with themselves. And it was just their mind telling them that they wouldn't be able to run for the 20 minutes. I knew physically they could. So that was a great lesson. So, you know, when we push through that terror barrier, it really builds our self-confidence, you know, and it gives us resilience as well for future challenges that we might face. And it creates a tolerance as well. It particularly creates a tolerance to change. Now, change is something that we're getting so much of these days. But the thing is that we have a choice to create and shape that change so that it works in our advantage. I discovered about 10 years ago that I had the choice and that I had the ability to control my life. And this was a bit of a revelation for me. At the time, I would have been quite overweight. I would have been unfit. And I thought actually wasn't my biggest fan at the time. Sometimes I thought I wasn't a great person to be around. I knew I wasn't a great person to be around in the mornings. So I became exposed to lots of different teachings and learning, some of them being these lessons. And on holiday at one stage, I made a choice and I said, right, I'm taking control of my life from here on in. So I made lots of changes. I started to get fit. I lost nearly 3 stone in weight and I reskilled myself as well. I studied life coaching and I set up a coaching consultancy. I also studied human resources and got a degree in human resources. I'm now also working as a fitness instructor and I'm nearly qualified as a strength and conditioning coach. So these are all big changes for me to make. And what I'm discovering now is that I'm a lot more grateful for what I have now compared to how grateful I was back then. I didn't know gratitude 10 years ago. So what I've discovered is from this more positive and grateful outlook in life that opportunities are coming my way. Now maybe those opportunities were always coming, but I couldn't see them. I certainly wasn't taking them. Now I'm seeing them and I'm taking them a lot more. One particular opportunity that's come my way recently, which Aidan has described, was to work with the Pure Results Bootcamp team. And this happened through a myriad of weird circumstances and it probably should never have happened. I don't know how I got involved in it. But it's been an amazing experience so far. I've got to work with a really amazing team that I've learned an awful lot from over the last 6 months. And as a team, we've got to work with over 100 people. And we've potentially changed their lives in terms of their approach to nutrition and activity and exercise and also just their mindset. So now I'm looking to take that approach with Jen to the business world and to organizations and clubs to help people improve their performance through improved health and well-being. And that health and well-being being nutrition, exercise and coaching. Because health and well-being is a fundamental stepping stone to improve performance, which leads to high performance, which is what we're all striving for at the end of the day. So what I'm thinking from that then is that we all have the ability to change. We all have that ability to change our lives, just to change what we're thinking. And it changed the journey for me and it made me realize that I'm really enjoying the journey. I don't know where this journey is going to end up for me, but I don't really mind because I'm really enjoying it. And that was the next lesson in the movie, was that it's the journey that brings us real happiness, not the destination. After coaching one of the clients recently at the boot camp, we were all having dinner together, and the client asked me, "What's the biggest lesson that you've learned in coaching over the last few years?" And I thought about it for a while, but the answer was quite easy in the end, and that was really just to be open and non-judgmental of people, which was the next lesson from this movie. Because when we're facing a situation and we're facing somebody, we don't know what they've come from. We don't know what their last conversation was, what they've left at home, what they've left at work, what they're feeling. Because we can't control how other people treat us, but we can certainly control how we react to that situation. The story I want to finish with is the final lesson from the movie, and that's to have a vision for your life. And I started using a vision board a number of years ago, and what I would do is I would pick little pictures up and print them out and put them up on the vision board of how I saw my life going in the next few years. So I came across a business that I admired. I admired what they did. I didn't know anybody personally from that business team, but I just thought I had similar beliefs and similar values, and I'd hoped that I would be able to do work like that in the future. So roll time on, 4 or 5 years, and I get a call from Aidan Enright, who I had met at a couple of his events here at the White Horse, and he mentioned to me that Enda McNulty was coming to talk on the White Horse in the red chair. And would I like to do one of the lead-in talks? So this really blew my mind, because the logo on the vision board was that of Motivate, End as Business. So it just really proved to me the power of having a vision in life and where it could lead to. I mean, it's limitless. So just to summarize the lessons from the movie again: to get out of your mind, take out the trash, push through that terror barrier, be open and non-judgmental, create a vision for your life, and remember that it's the journey that brings us happiness, not the destination. So I'd like to thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.